Hello and welcome to the Weather Quarter. I'm Jenny Woodward. As things start to warm up and the last burst of winter is almost out of puff, authorities around the country are gearing up for the hotter times ahead. There's a lot of preparation to be done. After all, experience tells us that summer yields very dramatic times across the country. A rather bizarre but fun experiment has been set up to see how householders cope in trying weather conditions without the everyday things we're used to. Add some comedians and a see-through house to the mix and the results are fascinating. The Brisbane Show, or Ekka as it's affectionately known, has seen its fair share of the weird and wacky. So exhibitors need to think outside the square to attract attention. This year, in a clever and innovative project, emergency services in Queensland packaged up a serious message into a humorous box. Indeed, a perspex box designed to simulate a home that had been damaged by a natural disaster. They invited some comedians to stay there for 3 nights and got them to share their experiences.
It's an interesting scenario. You find yourself with your world tipped upside down. Things have gone that you rely on. Electricity, running water, hot water on tap. That's a nice thing to have, isn't it?
Emergency services are aiming to get their message out early before the summer storms arrive and want to encourage people of all ages to have a plan in place to survive for 3 days if necessary without any outside help.
We've got the stove here, we've got like tin food, etc. We've got solar power down there, this little charger down here that you can charge an iPhone from, just using with the power of the sun.
Facebook and Twitter became a vital resource for information during the flood emergency in Queensland in 2010-2011. So this project has harnessed those sites to take the message beyond the showgrounds using a tagline of Survive 3.
It's a different way of engaging with people, and as we saw during the floods, we had a lot of people using Facebook to find out what was happening, and Twitter as well. So we thought, how can we harness that sort of social media platform, talk to people who like to live their lives on their iPhones or spend a lot of time on the computer, as well as having some fun with it.
With about 400,000 visitors to the Ekka this year, it's a smart place to put the message out. And it seems the response has been good.
We've got, as you can see, a fair bit of signage around sort of explaining the concept, and we've had quite a few SES volunteers handing out storm preparedness information and talking to people about the sorts of things they can do. We've got emergency kit items on display, and you know, people are coming in and they're saying, yeah, I've got that, or oh, I actually don't have that, where can I get it?
I imagine, you know, in a normal situation, in close quarters with your family or friends that you might be stuck with at the time, patience is probably the best virtue you can have in this situation.
The stand also offered plenty of practical resources, and there was an opportunity to talk with SES volunteers about their experiences in the field. Ashley Pringle has witnessed a lot of trauma in his young life and speaks like a man well beyond his years.
A couple of years ago, as you know, we had the Gap storms, which actually went through some of the Brisbane suburbs, and damage there was absolutely, phenomenal. People displaced and houses that just had to be condemned. Then we go up to Cyclone Yasi last year, and the destruction from the cyclone that rolled through there was absolutely enormous. Going to Grantham last year was a huge one. Walking in to the town, which I'd gone through many times beforehand, and seeing the differences in that town was absolutely huge.
But he does get frustrated by the lack of preparation.
Going out to many storm jobs, there's a lot of things people could be doing differently. We've turned up to homes where people have had 1 metre trees growing in their gutter and things like that you just wish that people would check, and they go, oh, I saw that for ages but didn't do anything about it. And that could have cost them $10,000 worth of damage easy.
Lindsay and Chris feel their experience in the fishbowl has given them some insights too.
I think this is a real problem that people face in these environments, and when this happens, I think that if people are more aware of what they might go through in this sort of situation, that's probably going to be good for them. And having a bit of a practice to make sure you have the things at home that you'd require to get through 72 hours. It doesn't sound like a long time, 72 hours, but in reality it is. It's quite a stretch.
It feels like a long time.
A lot of good advice and some important lessons learned there. And there's plenty more information available online. Head to www.stormwise.com.au. There have also been a lot of valuable lessons learned from the major cyclone that struck the Queensland coast last year. The monster called Yasi left a terrible trail of destruction. And although 18 months has passed, the scars still run deep.
We suffered a lot of water damage here, and the usual salt damage to air conditioners and things like that, and inundation, a bit of roofing damage and structural damage, but not as badly as some. It's a fairly low constructed building, so it doesn't fare too badly. But once again, it was horrendous damage to all the trees and things like that. That's the main thing that really knocks you. Is the beach was especially smashed. All the trees knocked down along the beach, and it was gouged out.
18 months after Cyclone Yasi, the wounds still run deep.
You might need some blankets for tonight because it's been a nice sunny day, so it'll get cold tonight.
Boyd Scott runs a backpackers hostel at Mission Beach, one of the beachside communities that was knocked around by the severe Category 5 storm.
Stay warm.
While things appear to be back to normal, he says they're far from it.
We've been going backwards ever since the cyclone. Yeah, we've had to renegotiate all loans and things like that, and it's putting a lot of stress on our financial situation. We're no different to anyone else in Mission Beach in that way. Everyone's had to take out second mortgages, and people are selling houses and land at the moment for probably 2/3 of what they were worth, 2 years ago.
All this points to a deeper problem, a mental health crisis within the cyclone-ravaged communities.
We do have people with post-traumatic stress disorder, people who don't want to go outside anymore, that can't face going out, people that can't even face going past their own home where they used to live. It's now just a bare block of land and they can't drive that way.
Mental health nurse Pasha Dunbar heads the Recovery and Resilience Response Unit in nearby Tully. She says cyclone survivors are displaying a range of psychological issues, but many don't realise they need help.
What's going on is people are trying to cope with this inner turmoil, and because, as it is for far north Queensland especially, we don't talk about that kind of stuff, they're digging it deep, they're pushing it inside.
Studies have shown it takes survivors 7 years to adequately process the emotional trauma of natural disasters. So many in North Queensland are struggling because Cyclone Yasi came so soon after Cyclone Larry.
1 month short of 5 years, Yasi came on. And I think it caused a big meltdown. It caused people to say, I can't do this anymore.
Boyd Scott says for those like him whose businesses are still suffering, the mental health crisis will only deepen. The two cyclones didn't wipe them out, but he says it could be the slow death of tourism that'll get them.
It's just very debilitating to consider where you can be and where you are. I mean, we constantly get told by people on council that the whole of Australia is doing it tough at the moment, tourism-wise. Well, the whole of Australia didn't get whacked by a cyclone on top of that and lose all its tourist attractions. So basically, we just want what we had before the cyclone hit.
In some cities and towns around Western Australia, there's a movement underway to help cool neighbourhoods ahead of summer. It's well known that gardens, trees and plants help keep temperatures down. This movement says power needs can also drop, making life cheaper and certainly more pleasant.
It's a rare splash of green in a concrete jungle. Community gardens like this one have been recognised for encouraging good health, local food production and a sense of community. What hasn't made the headlines is that they're cool.
At no cost to the owners and the people living in these buildings and working in these buildings around us, at no cost to them, these trees, these grass roofs, these edible landscapes are reducing the aircon costs of these buildings by thousands of dollars a year.
Michael Mobbs has been talking sustainability for years and gave up a career as an environmental lawyer to pursue his passion for green living. In 1996, he built himself a sustainable house, but he soon realised that wasn't enough. He wanted to transform his entire suburb, and he decided to start with the streets.
City streets are 6 degrees hotter than they need be because they're black. They get up anywhere from 50 to 60, sometimes 70 degrees. They are red hot radiators heating our cities 6 to 8 degrees night and day.
He and a team of guerrilla gardeners took to the streets of Chippendale in Sydney, turning verges into garden beds filled with shady trees, fruit and vegetables.
If we grow food where the streets are, we cool the streets, we provide local food, we cut all the pollution associated with transporting food. We do all those things in the one place.
Now Michael Mobbs wants to see his green plan go national and says the streets of Perth are crying out for a cool change.
You create